Section 31, subsection 2A of Kenyans are in a position to own a house. The clerk is already before the speaker, ready to present the tally. Allow me to hand you over so we can hear from the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Moses Wetangula, on how members voted in regards to that tally that was occasioned by a division from the House.
Are on their feet. Take your seats. DK, take your seat. The tellers may move forward and announce the results to the Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, sir, in the second reading of the Affordable Housing Bill 2023, the voting, manual for ayes 141, nays 58.
Order, honorable members. Kibagandi, take your seat. Order, honorable members. I now wish to announce the results of the voting to the House. Order. In a division on second reading of the Affordable Housing Bill 2023, the results are as follows. The ayes 141, the noes 58, total vote 199, abstentions nil, so the ayes have it. Clerk, can you read?
A bill.
Order, Wanjala. Order, before you read that. Order, before we conclude this, I want first to thank all members for your decorum. Apart from the errand member for Budalangi, the rest of the members observed absolute decorum. And Honorable Wanjala, you are supposed to be an elder to your colleagues here. So you can't sit there and be shouting at the top of your voice, contrary to Standing Order 76. So next time, be an example to your younger colleagues. It pays to do that. Order. Clerk, can you? You can't ask for a point of order, Honorable Undo. You know the rules. You are second termer. We are still in division. We haven't finished. Order. Go ahead, Clerk.
A bill for an act of parliament to give effect to Article 43(1)(b) of the Constitution to provide a framework for access to affordable housing and for connected purposes.
You may now open the bar. On the division, the voting is over. Yes. Okay.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. And I want to also join you in thanking members for having conducted
Honorable
themselves.
members, we are going to the NADCO report for those who are leaving. Yes, go on, Wandai.
Okay. Honorable Speaker, I wish to join you in commending the House for having undertaken a very, very seamless voting exercise on this bill. But as I do so, Honorable Speaker, I take note of the fact that the third reading stage of this bill has been lined up for tomorrow, Wednesday, 2:30 p.m.
Tomorrow afternoon, yes.
Yes. Honorable Speaker, I want to plead with you that, bearing in mind the enormous number of possible amendments that are coming from members on this very, very contested bill. I want to plead with you that you consider giving us a little bit more time in terms of arranging the order paper so that members can get opportunity to hand in their proposed amendments, and also where there are similar or related amendments, we can undertake the process of winnowing under the meaning of winnowing in the standing orders. Honorable Speaker, the feeling of most members here is that the timing of 2:30 p.m. tomorrow is too soon for those processes to be undertaken and be completed. I know for sure, Honorable Speaker, that I sit in the House Business Committee, but I want to plead with you that we try to rearrange this, since even on Thursday, we are still going to have a sitting that could actually be used to process the third reading stage of this very, very contentious and controversial bill. Honorable Speaker, I submit.
Inchungwa. Order, honorable members, the House is still in session. Order. Order, honorable members. Sabina Chega and your team, take your seats or go to wherever you're going.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I've listened to the Leader of Minority, and I'm glad he asserts that he's a member of the House Business Committee, and I can also confirm he was in the House Business Committee this morning, rather this lunch hour, and these are some of the issues that would have transacted in the House Business Committee, and he did not raise it, since the order paper was already published. Even by the time we were in House Business, there was an indication of the business that is lined up for debate tomorrow, right from the morning sitting to the afternoon sitting. And having listened to the issues, Honorable Speaker, it's also true that this debate began last week. And I'm also aware that quite a number of members have been in discussions with the chair of the committee proposing various amendments. And members, I know there are also quite a number of members who have already filed their amendments, proposed amendments. And therefore, since it's now 5 p.m., Honorable Speaker, and we have up to tomorrow, and occasionally, Honorable Speaker, the Speaker has allowed members to even file amendments on the floor, and they are considered in the afternoon for anybody who may want to file even over lunch hour. And the clerk's office can also publish a supplementary order paper. Honorable Speaker, I would prevail on you that we transact business as approved by the House Business Committee, since the Leader of Minority was within his right to propose that particular change within the House Business before approval of the business of the week by the House Business Committee. Otherwise, we will now be on the verge of retransacting the business that was before the House Business Committee in plenary, which will not set a very good precedent. I would rather, Honorable Speaker, that we give members up to tomorrow 1 p.m. to file their amendments. Those that may want to file amendments, especially any member who was not there on Thursday and who was not here today and may want to file an amendment. But I am certain, having checked with the clerk's office, there are already members who have filed amendments. And once the order paper is published, should there be any other amendments that anybody wants to file, we can give them up to a supplementary order paper with your approval, Honorable Speaker. Otherwise, I would strongly oppose delaying of this business, Honorable Speaker, beyond the time that was agreed on in the House Business Committee.
As Honorable Andai and your majority colleague, you both sit in the House Business Committee. You know what we passed. However, in accordance with our standing orders, I'll direct that any member who has any amendments to file, your deadline is noon tomorrow. Once you have filed in all the amendments, then the clerk will be directed to prepare a supplementary order paper to accommodate every file amendment. If the weight of the amendments are such that you need a winnowing process, I will have a consultation with both of you to see what we need to do. Otherwise, the matter will remain on the order paper for committee of the whole tomorrow afternoon. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, report of the National Dialogue Committee.
Honorable members, order number 9, the report will be debated in accordance with the motions we passed on the management of our time. It is allocated 2.5 hours. The majority and minority leaders have 10 minutes each. Each other member speaking has 5 minutes. Depending on the nature of interest and depending on how repetitious you would be in your contributions, the House Business Committee agreed that we may reduce the time to 3 minutes per member. But as it is, you passed a motion, that a motion of this nature, 2.5 hours, 10 minutes for majority, 10 minutes for minority, 5 minutes for each contributor. So, Majority Leader, you are called upon to move the motion. I see names already on the screen that are not for this motion. Wipe them out and log in afresh so that we give everybody a fair chance to contribute. Majority Leader. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the adoption of the National Dialogue Committee's report, or what was christened NADCO. And this report, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report which was laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 7th December 2023. Honorable Speaker, I was saying this report culminated from a long process that began with the bipartisan talks that were co-chaired by the Honorable Murugara and the Honorable Otiende Omolo. Let me take this opportunity to thank those two members and the members of the bipartisan team that formed the basis of our talks, Honorable Speaker, because we benefited immensely from the work that the two gentlemen had begun through the bipartisan talks. Honorable Speaker, allow me to also take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, my co-chair, and the leader of the delegation from the Azimio side, and ably assisted by the leader of minority, and also thank the other members of the committee, including my deputy, the Honorable Cecily Mbarire, the governor for Embu County, the Honorable Aaron Cheruyot, Honorable Hassan Omar, the Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, Honorable Amina Mnyazi, and of course I've mentioned the leader of my minority, the Honorable Opiyo and I. Honorable Speaker, this report, or rather the NADCO committee, considered all the 5 issues that we had agreed. And you remember, Honorable Speaker, many of us had other issues besides the 5 issues, and we framed our issues around 5 thematic areas: on electoral justice and related matters, outstanding constitutional matters, fidelity to political parties and coalitions, and the law on multi-party democracy, entrenching of funds into the Constitution, and those issues. And I don't to dwell into all the recommendations that came out of the report. Members, you remember, is a very bulky report that also factored in memoranda and submissions from many Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, we were able to listen to very many Kenyans who submitted memoranda to us, from about 258 written memoranda that were sent to the committee. 60 stakeholders appeared before the committee, and we listened to over 704 persons. And that tells you, Honorable Speaker, that this report factored in views from very many Kenyans from across the country. Honorable Speaker, we also have a retinue of proposals on legislative instruments or statutory instruments that emanated from this report. And Honorable Speaker, we have a total of 9 legislative instruments or legislative proposals that we shall be submitting to Parliament for publication upon the adoption of this report. And key among these legislative proposals, Honorable Speaker, touch on IEBC, on electoral justice and electoral reforms, Honorable Speaker. And there are quite a number of legislative proposals, beginning with the reconstitution of the IEBC panel. We have proposed amendments to the IEBC Act of 2011 to provide that the selection panel, Honorable Speaker, will be reconstituted. And Honorable Speaker, you remember the courts only a few weeks ago, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, in trying to cure the lacuna that exists in law, because you know the panel as it is today, Honorable Speaker, has no timelines, and they could take forever, Honorable Speaker. But with the amendment, besides reconstituting the IBC panel and growing the membership from 7 to 9 members to ensure that we have a cross-section of views and interest groups accommodated within the selection panel, we are also creating a timeline, and the panel will now be required to finalize the exercise within 90 days. From the day that the panel is appointed, they must complete the work and submit the nominees to the President, and they shall stand dissolved thereafter. Honorable Speaker, we have also allowed the Parliament, both houses, using a simple majority, the latitude to extend time for this panel should they need more time than the 90 days that will be provided for under the new act, should we adopt or rather enact the legislative proposal that amends the IBC Act of 2011. Honorable Speaker, it is also noteworthy that the committee has recommended a transitional clause to provide that the selection panel existing immediately at the commencement date of the act will cease to exist, but any person who is working in that panel is eligible to be renominated by any of the nominating bodies, Honorable Speaker. So therefore, for instance, the political parties liaison committee that had 2 nominees, they will now have 3 nominees under the new panel, and any of the nominees that were under that selection panel could be renominated by the political parties liaison committee, or in that case, even those under the Parliamentary Service Commission, they can renominate the same people. Those under LSK if the selection bodies desire, they can renominate the same people. Honorable Speaker, critical among the other changes, Honorable Speaker, is a recommendation by the committee to Article 89 of the Constitution on delimitation of boundaries. Honorable Speaker, again, you know the courts have also pronounced themselves on the question of delimitation of boundaries, and we had a statutory deadline that lapses at the end of March, which is only next month, Honorable Speaker. And it is therefore not practical under the circumstances to be able to delimit boundaries within a period of a few weeks after the adoption of this report. And therefore, we are proposing that Article 89 of the Constitution is amended to provide for extension of the period for conduct of the review of the constituency's boundaries by IBC, where for any reason, like the case is this time, the review of the names and boundaries of constituents is not completed within the time stipulated under Article 89(2) of the Constitution. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we shall also be bringing those amendments. Honorable Speaker, on audit of the 2022 presidential elections, we did engage in this matter, and we agreed that in line with the constitutional provisions, Honorable Speaker, that we evaluate all our presidential and election. We agreed that we shall not be reviewing since the presidential election was settled, and that is a matter now beyond us, Honorable Speaker, and settled by the Supreme Court. But we shall, in line with our constitutional provisions, be evaluating, or rather have a process of an evaluation of the 2022 electoral process, so that, Honorable Speaker, we ensure that future elections, beginning with the 2027 elections, Kenyans are certain that the election results are credible and the entire electoral process, right from registration of voters, Honorable Speaker, up to the time votes are tallied and winners announced, be it for MCA all the way to governor and presidential elections, that Kenya have followed a process that ensures the entire process is credible, Honorable Speaker. And that, Honorable Speaker, we have created in the report a mechanism where we shall, within 21 days after adoption of this report, have a system where we have identified either one act, an evaluation process of the last elections, Honorable Speaker, with a view to improving on the systems, because this is what our Constitution provides for, mandated under our Constitution, to ensure that they have a system that evaluates that electoral process with a view to enhancing, or rather to making the processes, the electoral processes, more efficient and more credible election after election. On outstanding constitutional matters, there are issues that touch on 2/3 gender rule, and I know many of our lady members of parliament have been very keen on this issue. I do know, Honorable Speaker, that there was a ministerial working team on this aspect, and indeed, we did recommend that on the 2/3 gender rule, the committee recommended that the multi-sectoral working group on the realization of the 2/3 gender rule under the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action finalizes its work and recommend a framework of implementation of the 2/3 gender principle and submit its report to Parliament for consideration. And Honorable Speaker, I had an engagement this afternoon with Honorable Sabina Chege, the party leader of Jubilee, who has been very keen in pursuing this matter. And she has indicated to me that following the meeting we had yesterday between our parliamentary group and the cabinet yesterday in Naivasha, indeed the Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action has indicated to our lady members of parliament that they have indeed concluded this and they have a report ready, and we shall be engaging with the cabinet secretary to be able to relay that report so that as we adopt this report, Honorable Speaker, we can have that report from the multi-sectoral team form part of the legislative proposals that will come as a consequence of this NADCO report. And we shall be engaging with the Minister, Honorable Aisha, to have that ready. Honorable Speaker, on the cost of living, Honorable Speaker, because this is, again, maybe before I get to the cost of living, Honorable Speaker, on entrenching of funds into the Constitution, we did recommend that NGCDF, because of the critical role it plays together with NGAF and the Senate Oversight Fund, that they be entrenched into our Constitution, Honorable Speaker, and more importantly, on the World Development Fund, to ensure that all our MCAs in our constituencies and in our... We also recommended that the World Development Fund be established by statute in accordance with Article 207, sub-Article 4B of the Constitution, to ensure that our wards and our ward representatives are also able to carry out their work of oversight over their governors without anybody cajoling them or intimidating them that they will miss out on development funds for their wards. And Honorable Speaker, MCAs will now be able, upon adoption of this report and upon enactment of the requisite legislative proposals, to be able to have development funds allocated to their respective wards. Honorable Speaker, on establishment of entrenchment of state offices, we also did agree on the establishment of the office of the leader of the official opposition and that of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I know those within the Azimio coalition, since they are now the official opposition, they will agree on who will take over that position, Honorable Speaker. And I wish them all the best as in that endeavor. Honorable Speaker, on the cost of living, because, Honorable Speaker, the question of the cost of living is one of the matters that we dealt with at length, and there are many proposals that were submitted to us by many stakeholders, including, Honorable Speaker, as I said when I moved the affordable housing bill, on the question of whether to be able to help our economy to recover, we have an opportunity to have an aggressive investment in huge infrastructure projects, Honorable Speaker, and we are able to engage with economists of repute, including those from the SID, who submitted to the committee, Honorable Speaker, that even developed countries like the Republic of Germany, after the Second World War, they had an aggressive investment of huge infrastructural investments, Honorable Speaker, to help the economy to recover. And we did, for those of us who subscribe to the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, submit before NADCO that part of that endeavor is this housing agenda. And I am glad that even those of our colleagues in the Azimio coalition do agree with us, including the former Prime Minister, that housing as an agenda is critical at this particular time in our republic, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, too, on the question of the cost of living, Honorable Speaker, there are many proposals, many good proposals that came from the Azimio coalition, and some, in fact, 90% of what was submitted by the Azimio coalition before NADCO on the cost of living, we are able to adopt those proposals, touching on some of the levies that touch on the cost of fuel in this country. Honorable Speaker, we had also points of divergence on principle, Honorable Speaker, and we respectfully agreed that because some of the proposals they had are proposals that touch on their manifesto in Azimio, especially on the question of subsidies and consumption subsidies. And we were able to push our case, and we were able to agree with our colleagues in the Azimio coalition that on the question of consumer subsidies, they allow the government of the day to implement the manifesto that they sold to the people of Kenya that had of the NADCO, except the Honorable Eugene Wamalwa. And on the question of the prices of unga, which I know is what was being sold then, I am saying I am glad that today, Honorable Speaker, as we engage in the debate on this report, Honorable Speaker, nobody in this country today, including my colleagues in Azimio, none of them today speaks about the cost of unga when they talk about the cost of living today, Honorable Speaker. I am glad that what we told them in NADCO and what we have told them before, that production subsidies do work. And it is a proven theory in economics that production subsidies give you better results and more lasting results than consumption subsidies. Today, Honorable Speaker, the price of unga that was at 260, I saw yesterday one of the brands today retailing at 114 shillings without consumption subsidies, Honorable Speaker. Farmers, patriotic farmers in this country, Honorable Speaker, courtesy of the subsidized fertilizer, have produced millions of bags that they would never have produced, Honorable Speaker, had they not accessed the subsidized fertilizer that was going for 7,000 shillings only a year ago, but today, a year and a half ago, Honorable Speaker, but today they're able to access fertilizer at a price of 2,500 shillings. And that is what has brought down the cost of living, Honorable Speaker, in terms of the price of unga. And I'm glad those of our friends who donned sufurias on their heads, today their sufurias are very busy in their kitchens with unga at 114 shillings, Honorable Speaker. And some of the most expensive brands retailing at 140 shillings, brands that were going at a price of 278 when we were being pushed to go for fertilizer subsidies, for consumption subsidies, Honorable Speaker. Let me, Honorable Speaker, without belaboring a lot of these things much, because the report has been debated even in the public fora, plead with all of us to adopt this report. Is a product of a very fruitful bipartisan engagement, Honorable Speaker. The spirit of NADCO was to ensure that never again, Honorable Speaker, in this country shall we ever have to fight.
Mr. Speaker, the majority leader is about to wind up, but did you hear him saying that the cost of unga has reduced From which shop, may I ask, from which shops in Nairobi does the majority leader shop from, where the cost of unga is reduced to 140? May I ask, although perhaps I'm going to different shops.
First of all, this is not question time. Carry on. There, you are prosecuting your point of order wrongly. You're asking questions instead of asking whether he's in order to say what he's saying.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And you know, Honorable Speaker, I was careful because I'm not in the business of promoting brands. But I have just seen it was the Honorable Ruku who shared the photo of one of the brands retailing in a supermarket in Nairobi at 114 shillings. You could share that picture with Honorable Ting. This NADCO process, Honorable Speaker, was informed by the desire by all Kenyans to engage in our politics in a way that is devoid of violence, Honorable Speaker. And I am glad that we were able to transact business in NADCO in a very civil manner, in a spirit of give and take, and the Honorable Opiyo will bear me witness that even the most difficult questions within NADCO, we are able to deal with them in a very good way, in a very civil, that are of concern to us as Kenyans, in an amicable manner through dialogue. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, see my time is over, I beg to move and plead with all of us to support this report, adopt it, so that we allow the House to be able to be seized of the legislative proposals that have far-reaching effects, especially those that touch on our electoral processes and the challenges that bedevil our IEBC and delimitation of boundaries. With those many remarks, I beg to move and request the Honorable Leader of Minority, the Honorable Opiyo and I, the NADCO Deputy Delegation Leader of the Azimio Coalition, to second.
Yes, Honorable Ruku, what is...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is good to inform Honorable Kajwang.
Order. You're out of order. He's not on the floor. Order. Cross off and go and quietly tell him.
The Honorable Speaker, how I wish our colleague members would learn the rules of this House and avoid taking us in circles or treating us to unnecessary shenanigans. Honorable Speaker, let me start as I second the motion for the adoption of the National Dialogue Committee report by saying that the establishment of the NADCO, the result of very, very painful experiences that the country was going through following the elections of August 2022 and following this immense suffering that Kenyans were going through as a result of the skyrocketing cost of living. Those twin issues took hundreds, if not thousands, of Kenyans to the streets across the country. And the country was teetering on the brink of total collapse of governance and indeed lawlessness. And therefore, we must thank the initiators of this NADCO process, the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and the Honorable William Ruto. We can also not forget to thank immensely President Olusegun Obasanjo for having made efforts to ensure that both parties saw the sense to come to the table. Honorable Speaker, this was that just like in any negotiation process, it was a question of giving and taking. We had a raft of issues as the Azimio Coalition that we had placed on the table. Similarly, the Kenya Kwanza side had their issues. At the end of the day, we were able to harmonize these issues and develop a framework of engagement, which guided our negotiations up to the end. I'm happy that in the face of enormous challenges, in the face of serious differences in opinion, we were able to arrive at specific recommendations touching on specific areas or thematic areas, and to condense this in a report, which is the subject of this motion that is before us today. The Honorable Speaker, I want to summarize really, because 10 minutes is too short. Some of the takeaways in the report, without necessarily repeating, are one, the roadmap towards reconstitution of the IEBC. The second one is the governance structure, the governance around political parties and their management. There is the issue of the audit of the elections. We have agreed on this matter to establish within 21 days upon the adoption of this report a panel consisting of 3 persons from each side to develop the terms of reference that will guide this audit process. I want to leave it to that panel to be able to establish these TORs. We must also, of course, talk about the World Development Fund, but more importantly, the matter of the increase of the allocation of the national revenues to the counties from the current minimum 15% to 20%. Those are some of the takeaways. But coming back to the question of the IBC, I keep on saying, time and again, that in this part of the world, the matter of elections is life and death. Believe you me or not. Elections in this country, just like it is in this part of the world, is a matter of life and death. And therefore, the body that is to be charged with the responsibility of managing elections must be, like Caesar's wife, beyond reproach, and must enjoy the confidence of the wider majority of the populace, and indeed must enjoy the confidence of the key players in the electoral process. That is what informed NADCO's recommendation to restructure the IEBC, to restart the process of appointing the IEBC commissioners, and to recommend specific amendments to the Elections Act, to the IEBC Act, and indeed to the Constitution. We in NADCO resolved that never again should the country go back to where it was just few weeks or so before the establishment of the NADCO. That never again should we have a situation where an IBC would be split down the middle at the critical moment of announcing the results of presidential elections. That it was never the intention of the framers of our Constitution, and indeed Kenyans, when they adopted this Constitution in 2010, that a body charged with the onerous responsibility of managing elections would be split in the middle at the critical stage of announcing presidential election results. The raft of recommendations in this report are, among other things, aimed at curing that very, very serious problem that can only be, that has come to be associated with only Kenya. Honorable Speaker. The Honorable Speaker, the issue of the two-thirds gender principle, the not more than two-thirds gender principle, has been adequately captured in the report. It was our view in NADCO that since the time was not adequate, and since there was a working group, a multi-sectoral working group, dealing with that question, that we give it time to complete its work and compile a report, which report would be treated as part of the NADCO. The report that would come from the multi-sectoral group, working group, dealing with the question of the not more than two-thirds gender principle, within the letter and spirit of the NADCO report, would be part of the NADCO report. And I want to join Honorable Inchungwa in urging that group. I had a chance to meet them yesterday, Honorable Speaker. They came calling to my office, and I had very, very fruitful engagement with them. And I urged them yesterday to fast-track the process and submit their report with the proposed instruments to this House, even as we proceed with this process of implementing the NADCO recommendations. Honorable Speaker, there are some issues that the committee, in its wisdom, recommended that they be referred to the principals, the two principals, Honorables William Ruto and Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Honorable Speaker, one of the issues that we agreed should be referred to the two principals is the matter of the Cherera 4. The 4 IBC commissioners that differed in opinion with the other three. It was in the wisdom of the committee that matter be referred to the two principals to perhaps pursue a settlement outside the court process. We also agreed that on the matter of violence, including violence against the public by the police and police killings, be referred to the principals with a view to forming a system, to establishing a system of undertaking thorough investigations and holding whoever is responsible.
1 minute.
So, Honorable Speaker, in a nutshell, as I conclude, given that the document we are discussing today, the NADCO report, is a negotiated document, is a consensus document, our understanding and our position is that such a document is not open to any form of amendment. And that principle also applies equally to the attendant instruments, that is the proposed legislative amendments to statutes and the Constitution. So with those very many remarks, I second and I urge my colleagues to adopt this report in totality and to allow the country to move forward in one accord. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Minority Leader. I now propose the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the National Dialogue Committee laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 7th December 2023. Karoli Omondi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I did have opportunity to make both a personal presentation to this committee as well as a group presentation by 27 other honorable members of Parliament. I would like to talk about 3 things. I've gone through it, and I must thank the committee for at least recording and acknowledging our presentation as 27 members of Parliament who called for the creation of 10 additional counties based on the original Kilifi draft and other instruments that preceded the enactment of the 2010 Constitution. However, I've noted that there are several glaring misrepresentations of what the position of the Constitution is in relation to the way new counties are established. You will agree, Honorable Speaker, that the IEBC has completely no role in the review and delimitation of